Alright, it's Tuesday, and as promised, I'm going to get you guys the assignment. I've decided to make two separate short videos. One describing the assignment, and the second one showing you guys how to go out there and download fonts for yourself. Okay, it's going to be different if you're on a machine that's at school, and we'll talk about that in that video, but you should see that in the list alongside this one. So I'm not going to lecture too much about fonts. I did enough lecturing last night. But I think that going from our first few weeks into this and really talking about how to choose fonts and how to think about fonts that work together when doing layouts and doing body copy and headlines and so on and so forth, right? I think that will piece with that work that we've done to allow you to make just more complete design. And I think that a lot of you guys are already kind of ahead of the game and know how to go out there and find your own fonts and use those. So regardless, as a class, as a group, we're going to work together to kind of talk about the same things, and I'm sure that some of us will be helpful to other students, because typography is something that you might not think about until you really think about it, if it makes sense. If you go out to Pinterest, for example, and type in logos, you'll see that fonts are a lot of times the foundation of creating a brand, and in some cases, some people make it a thing for them as a designer to create fonts, and some people love fonts so much that ends up being their thing. We all know someone that loves hand lettering, right? Probably somebody on Instagram, but it does actually, there's a lot of work to be done in that department. Now, you can go through here and see how you can be really clever with the way that you use font along with other simple pieces of artwork, such as this. And so do some exploring and kind of just see how font is utilized and how creative people are with it. And we're going to just expand each week on how we use it and the opportunities that our programs allow us to use it. But first, we're going to kind of start slow and do something simple. And I think that this will not be a ton of work per se, but I think that it will be a good start in just getting us thinking about this whole font and typography department. Okay, so for example, in this particular piece right here, you have this icon, this image, this other piece of artwork, and then this font is paired with it. A lot of times you'll see logos like this where you have this icon that you would remember without the label, but the entire logo, the combination mark is the technical term that my professor used to use, is that font label with the icon. So our objective is to sort of practice combining icons and looking at the characteristics of those and deciding what font treatment would go best with that icon. So the assignment is as follows. Go to your Files tab or button or link inside of Canvas. You should see a Logo and Typography project folder. Click that and download this JPEG. I've already done so. Now in Design, I already have it set up, but I'll go back to the start. Press the Create New button, and then underneath the Print section, you should see a tabloid option. If you don't see it there, we'll do it custom. Select inches from the Units drop-down menu, and then make sure that you have 11 by 17 in one or the other, because this will be landscape, 17 by 11. I'll click Create. Oops. You should get this size of document. Now, press File, Place, and find that JPEG. Should be in your Downloads folder. Click Open, and then click from the corner and drag all the way to the other corner opposite, and it should fill the page. Now what you'll see here is a group of 12 icons, that most of which you probably know, and then a space to the right. So your objective here is to think of yourself as a designer that has been tasked with finding a new font that's going to pair with this logo. the icon is not changing, but your objective is just to reimagine the font that gets paired with it. Now, the best and easiest way to kind of give this a go is to create a text box, let's say underneath the Apple logo, like this. I'll center that, and then I might just go ahead and type in Apple. It will use the default font, which is Minion Pro in my program. Could be different for you, depending on the version. Now I will go into that drop-down menu, and you'll see that there's a lot of fonts to choose from here. Now if I highlight that text and then go back to the drop-down menu, you'll see that in the latest version, it's going to preview what that font would turn that into on the right-hand side in this column. That gives you sort of some ability to see ahead of time what it might be if you were to change it to that font. I'm not going to go through a bunch of these options right now, but for example, if I were to select this one, I would get this. And of course, we have to think about the proportions between the font size and the icon. So of course, we would go in and probably increase that size a little bit. Now don't forget about these options here too. This is your kerning between characters, and if I increase that, you'll see that the space between the characters increases. You can also go negative and push those closer together. You can also increase the height of the character. Go back to 100%. And the width of the character just as much. You can also at the same time go negative. So while yes, you have the options of deciding what font face to change this into, you also have other adjustments you can make to make it even more custom to what you want it to be. So don't forget about these adjustments here either. So your job is to do this and decide on a font for each one of these different icons. Real quick, I'd like to just go through these in case you've forgotten. This is obviously Apple. This is obviously our university, Midland University, Target, Vistaprint, Wikipedia, Tinder, Nike, Dan and Dave Industries, Firefox, Spotify, Theory 11, and YouTube. Now, if there's a company here you're not familiar with, you can go online and research them, but don't be over-influenced by what they've done in the past. Your job is to kind of just look at the characteristics of these and then make a selection and adjustments based on what you think is going to match the icon best, or sometimes contrast the icon the best in a way that makes sense. And I think that you guys will see what that means as you kind of try different things out. One last thing, let's say I bring this over here. I want to make this the same color as the icon. I also expect that you guys change the color based on what would match nice with the icon. So just, select that and then use the eyedropper tool over here to make that adjustment. And it will detect the RGB color that's put down in that JPEG image. Finally, after you make selections for each of these and decide on what font to label each company, I want you guys to use this space to put 3 of your own. All right? So you can decide what 3 companies you want to include and which 3 companies you want to sort of reimagine the labeling font for. So just go ahead and find the icon of that company and place them just alongside these, but of course on this side of the line, and then do the exact same thing. Get the text box over underneath it and change that, label it with the company name. Find something that works for you and do that for 3 of your own companies. So that way we have all done the same 12, but also we have some uniqueness in whatever 3 you guys decide. So it's kind of a fun part of this. Overall, at the end of this, you will have relabeled 15 different icons and created at the same time 15 different combination logos for these companies. So The task basically is, and the purpose basically is just finding fonts that you think match up well with, the traits and characteristics that are shown by each. Also, don't be too shy with color. Change it to a color that makes sense. And if that color maybe isn't in the icon itself, that's okay too. Once this is done, you will save the InDesign file as normal, and then go File, Export into a PDF, and turn that in to the place in Canvas to turn documents in. You'll see that underneath Module 6. I don't need your InDesign file this time, I just need the PDF. So that's your task this week. It's just kind of an introductory study into deciding what fonts to use. If you're interested in going out there and finding your own fonts and new stuff that isn't here already in Adobe, look for a video beneath this one describing how to do that. And if you have any questions about this or that video, as always, just give me a holler.